Hey guys, it's Miss Sprunger. Today we are going to be learning about 1- and 2-step equation solving. So something that you should have done in the 7th grade. That's a super essential skill for when you get to high school. But some of you guys might need some refreshing, and we're going to go ahead and get into it today. So why are we doing this whole pre-algebra stuff? We need to know how to do 1- and 2-step equation solving for 8th grade, first of all. So when we get to that fun equation solving stuff, but you guys are going to be taking algebra 1 and 2 in the high school. So you need to make sure that you have these foundational skills so that you are good to go once you get to the high school. All right. So let's look at 1-step equation solving first. So go ahead and look at your worksheet that you have in front of you. So we've got number 1, p minus 20 equals negative 17. So as I'm looking at this, there's a couple things that I want to say. First of all, when I am solving an equation, whether it's a 1-step, 5-step, a million-step equation, I know that's not reasonable, but I like to draw, sorry guys, I like to draw a line down the middle of my equal sign, and that's going to help us keep our equation balanced, okay? So before I get into the nuts and bolts of solving this thing, we've got 2 different types of terms. So when I say terms, I'll write this here. I'm talking about our variable terms in a different color, all right, and our constant terms, okay? So when we're looking at this equation in number 1, when I say variable, right here, variable, that represents the letters. So if you're like, why the heck are they putting letters in math? This is why. So we've got P, that's our variable term. So anytime you see the letter or a letter in your equation, that's what you're solving for. That's an unknown value. You've actually been doing this for a long time. If you think of like in 1st grade when they were like blank plus 1 equals 2. Like, what is the blank? Okay, that's essentially what we're doing. We're just taking, we're just finding a nice concrete way to get to the answer, especially with more complex things going on. So terms, this is our variable term, and then a constant term is going to be those numbers. Okay, so those numbers, it could be a decimal fraction, whatever, but anything that's not a variable is going to be a constant term in our equation solving stuff. Okay, so now, this is a 1-step equation, which means we only have to do one thing to get to our answer, okay? So our goal is to get all of our constant terms to one side of the equal sign and all of our variable terms to the other side of the equal sign, okay? So if I'm looking at this, I need to, if I can move this negative 20, and I will say, some of you guys are like, why'd you circle negative 20 and why didn't you just circle the 20? When we're looking at this all together, that says P minus 20. When we're looking at them as individual terms, that variable term is P, that constant is negative 20. Okay, so we need to move that negative 20 to the other side of the equal sign. We can't just move it though, okay? We've got to do the opposite operation. So right now, we've got a minus 20. To move a negative 20, what's the opposite of a negative 20? A positive 20. Okay, so to move that negative 20, we're going to go ahead and add 20. So the opposite of a negative is a positive. If you guys wanted clarification. So whatever we do to one side, we've got to do it to the other side because we need to make sure we're keeping our equations balanced. Okay, so we're going to add 20 to both sides. So negative 20, positive 20, that's going to cancel. So then on the right side, I'm sorry, left side of my equal sign, the only thing that I've got going on is this P. And then on the right side, we've got negative 17. Now everybody pick up your calculators. You should have one that looks like this. That negative button, if you're not sure, it's next to your decimal point down here. So we've got negative. Here's a negative button. They also have a negative button on iPhones if you don't have a calculator in front of you, or you can type it in a computer. So negative 17 plus 20 should look like negative 17 plus 20. You should get positive 3. Okay, so this means that we solved for that missing value, P equals positive 3. All right, and so let me clear this for a second so we can think about this. If P equals positive 3, that means if I were to plug in 3 right here, if I were to type in 3 minus 20 in my calculator, I should get negative 17. I got the right answer. It checks out. Okay, so I know that was kind of a long way to explain something that's a little more simple, but let's look at this next one because it might be a little bit more challenging since we've got some division involved. All right, so same thing, I'm going to draw my line down the middle of the equal sign. Let's go ahead. I've got my variable term and I've got my constant terms. Remember, I'm going to get all my constants to one side, all of my variable terms to the other side. So notice, and this is number 2 on your worksheet, guys. So we've got K, and then we've got this bar. That bar right there that you see between K and 18 represents division. Okay, so if we're thinking about operations, the opposite of division is multiplication. So we're going to go ahead and undo, so do the opposite operation. So instead of dividing by 18, we're going to go ahead and multiply by 18. Whatever we do to one side, we've got to do to the other side, okay? So division by 18 and multiplication by 18 is going to cancel. So on the left side of my equal sign, I'm left with K equals, and then go ahead and pull up your, take out your calculators again. We've got 7. We're doing this section right here, okay? So 7 times 18. And you can feel free, the teacher that's in the room with you, feel free to ask them help with your calculator if you have it on you, or help typing it in. 7 times 18 is going to give us 126, okay? All right, we're going to just do 2 more together like this, and then we're going to move on to 2-step, okay? Just as a review, as a refresher. All right, so we've got step 1. Let's draw our line down the middle of the equal sign. This is number 3 on your worksheet. We've got our constant term and our variable term. Now, I know you might be thinking, well, there's a number and a variable. If it's attached like this, so if you have a number directly attached to a variable, that's called your coefficient. We'll get to that more in math class, but that whole thing, that 18x is going to be your variable term, okay? So remember, we want variable terms on the left, or I'm sorry, variable terms on one side, coefficients, not coefficients, constants on the other side. So we want to get x by itself. We want to figure out what that x is. So whenever we have something like a coefficient or a number smushed right next to an x like that, or a variable, they're not just hanging out together. There's a reason that they're next to each other, okay? So this is really 18 times x, okay? So I just kind of expanded that for you. So on the right side, you can write 18 times x, and on the left side, I'm just going to bring down this 324. All right. Now to get x by itself, I need to go ahead and do the opposite of multiplication, which is going to be division. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 18. That's going to get me x equals, so then we've got 324 divided by 18. Go ahead and pick up your calculators. 324 divided by 18, that's going to give us 18. All right. Last but not least, we're going to do one more one-step equation together. You're going to do some on your own. So go ahead and I would suggest to you, you guys don't have access to like colored pencils or highlighters on the state test, but you do have a pencil. So I would suggest, I know I like highlighting in colors and stuff like that, but I would suggest maybe circling your constants in drawing a box around your variables. So circles and boxes. You'll hear me say that in class if you have me. But we want to go ahead and I'm just going to use colors for right now, or I'll just use red to highlight my my variable term. So remember, I want variables on one side, constants on the other side. So if these are my constants, I need to go ahead and move positive 16 to the other side. So remember, to move a positive term, to move a plus 16, we're going to go ahead and do the opposite, which would be to subtract 16. Whatever we do to one side, we've got to do to the other side, okay? So now we're going to have b equals, and then we've got 18 minus 16, and that's going to give us 2. All right. So that is how we solve one-step equations, okay? Next, we've got 2-step equations. We're only going to do 2 of these together, and then I'm going to send you on your own. This is going to be number 5 on your worksheet. So go ahead and first off, draw that straight line down the middle of your equal sign. Step 2, go ahead and identify what is your variable term and what is your constant term. So my constants are these numbers. And remember, if you have a negative number, so like a -1 or something like that, circle the negative in front of it because that is applying to that term, okay? and then we've got 6x, all right? So remember, our goal is to get variables on one side, constants on the other side. Now this is called a two-step equation because we have to do 2 steps to get to the answer. So the first thing we want to do is get all of our constants to one side of the equal sign. So the first thing I need to do, so step 1 is going to be to move that constant of -1 to the other side. Let's do the opposite of -1, which would be to add 1. Whatever we do to one side, got to do to the other side. So we've got -19 plus 1. With negative numbers, guys, I would always suggest putting it in your calculator because you can use a calculator on the state test. And negative numbers get tricky because people just can't wrap their brain around it. I know -19. Some of you guys, if you add 1 in your brain, you might think it's maybe -20 because that seems bigger, but -19 plus 1 is actually -18. Okay, so on the right side, we've got 6x. Now remember, I said this earlier in the video, 6x, whenever we've got a coefficient and a variable smushed together, so a number and a variable smushed right next to each other, they're being multiplied. So to get that x by itself, this is going to be our step 2, we're going to divide because the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 6. So we're going to have x equals, and then go ahead and get your calculators out for our negative number. So -18 divided by 6 is going to give us -3. All right, and always box in your answer or circle it when you're done so you can locate it easily. All right. Last one we're going to do all together today. This one's a little weird, so that's why I wanted to do like a challenge problem, I guess, just in case you run into these. So first off, go ahead and then draw that line down the middle of your equal sign. Start identifying your different types of terms. So constant, 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 and then I've got my variable. Okay, well, I want all my variables on one side, all of my constants on the other side. So again, for you, I would suggest doing circles and boxes because if you don't have colored pencils or highlighters or anything, circles and boxes works just fine. That's what I would recommend on the state test. So we've got lots of things happening. So -1 equals 7 plus x divided by 9. So this whole thing, the 7 plus x, and I'll kind of draw this a little thicker so you can see the 7 plus x, that whole thing in parentheses is being divided by 9. So before you can even attempt to get rid of that 7, we have to get rid of that 9. It sounds weird, but since it's one whole thing, since 7 plus x is getting divided, we need to undo that by doing the opposite. So the opposite of division is going to be multiplication. So step 1, we need to get rid of this division by 9. So to do that, we're going to multiply by 9, do the same thing on the other side. Remember, we need to do whatever we do to one side, we've got to do to the other side. Okay, so -1 times 9 is going to give us -9. And then the only thing the only thing that we have remaining on the right side is going to be that 7 plus x. So if it helps you, go ahead and I'll do circles and boxes for you guys. So I'll do a circle for my variable term and I'll do a box for my constants. All right, remember, we need to get all of our constants to the other side so we can solve for x. So 7 is a +7. We need to move that to the other side. So let's go ahead and do the opposite of a +7, which would be a -7. So we need to go ahead and subtract 7 from both sides of the equal sign, okay? So -9 minus 7, you might think you know, it's a negative number, just plug it into your calculator to double check. -9 minus 7 is going to give us -16. I'm going to kind of write this over here. So -16 equals, and then the only thing remaining is that x. So our x value is there. So as you're working through this worksheet with your teacher today, remember to draw a line down your equal sign. You can go ahead and start by doing that if you want. If you want to go through every single problem, draw a line down the middle of your equal sign so you don't forget, go for it. Make sure you identify different terms. So remember, constants are going to be your numbers without letters, I guess I will say. I know that sounds weird, but anytime you see like -19, 10, like plus 10, that kind of thing. Those are going to be your constants. Your variable terms are going to be your letters. So that's going to be, if you see X, maybe you see 3X. Those are going to be your variable terms, okay? So make sure you're identifying your different types of terms. And remember, the goal is to get the variable or the letter by itself, because that is going to be your solution to your equation, okay? So hopefully this helped today. Be sure to ask your teacher for any questions that you need answered, and good luck on your worksheet today, guys. See you Wednesday.